when you've been in a band for so long, there's gonna be like 100 other younger bands that's gonna be better than you. So 2020, when the pandemic hit, I questioned all of this. Where are we as a band now? How are we relevant? Is our music any good, or are we writing like crappy music? Where are we now?
Has there been like a time where you guys had any disagreement or doubts about the direction of the music?
All the time.
Okay.
All the time. The one that really like made me wanna get into a band, bands like Dashboard Confessional, Taking Back Sunday, like Under Oath.
Like going with a record label and going fully independent, what are the two major differences in both of the experiences?
The biggest difference for me, the fact that we could say that, we're signed to a major label.
Right.
When we were signed, there was very little work that was done. There are different types of deals. I mean, we didn't have that 360 deal like, okay? A 360 deal means everything, management, development, merchandising, producing your music, everything, right?
On a day-to-day basis, do you currently have a full-time job?
When people ask us, so do you do music full-time?
Yeah.
Then we'll say, no, music is our overtime. So I used to teach English, and I did that for 6 years. But while I was doing that, I was also organizing shows, I was organizing gigs, and people you trust, betray you and stuff like that. So all these were themes. The new album, which is called The Lonely Hearts Club, I will go through at least once or twice where I feel like, man, this is going nowhere, Let's just quit music, sell all my equipment, let's not just do music anymore, let's just focus on the job.
If someone's listening right now who's struggling to chase their dream, right? What would you tell them?
Just try. Just try. I mean, if you're really terrible, then people will tell you.
Hi Darren, welcome to the Monoflow podcast.
Yo man, it's a pleasure being here.
Thank you so much for coming by. Could you introduce yourself and also your band, and how long have you guys been in the industry?
My name is Darren. I play guitar and I sing in a pop punk band called An Honest Mistake, and we've been together, the band has existed since 2008. Yeah, so it started off as an acoustic thing. I was in a metal band then.
Okay.
Where I started in 2005 when I was like 17, 18.
Okay.
Yeah, so then when I went off to uni, I had all these like acoustic songs, very Dashboard Confessional, Taking Back Sunday written, and I was like, okay, I think I want to do this acoustic thing. So that was in 2008 when I started playing shows, and 2009 was kind of when I had like a full band. Started off as an acoustic thing, solo, and then I had like a full band still with acoustic guitar, but in 2009 I just went electric.
Right.
Yeah, so then later on we added a violinist, we had a female vocalist as well. Yeah, so we've been around for a long time now.
All right.
Yeah.
Who was your biggest inspiration growing up in forming this band?
For me, like my brother was in a big band. He was in a big band here, and his friends who were guys from Loving Boots, Pop Shavit, the main guys, and then that's kind of how I got to know them. And I guess all these guys, like my brother obviously, is a huge inspiration, and all these guys in all these big bands as well. But the one that really like made me want to get into a band was, bands like Dashboard Confessional, Taking Back Sunday, bands I just mentioned earlier, like Under Oath, So these are the bands that I listened to a lot when I was growing up.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
And that was kind of like the whole emo era, right? So I mean, emo's got its resurgence now. In fact, like 31st October, there's a huge emo night that's happening that I am also a part of. And I'm excited, right?
Stay tuned for that.
Yeah. So I would say my brother would be my biggest inspiration first and foremost, and my dad because he was always into music. When we were kids, he would listen to Elvis and Cliff Richard and the Beatles, bands like that. So
yes.
So we grew up listening to a lot of music, and it ranges from oldies like blues to rock to metal, and then obviously everybody would have to go through the explosion of boy bands, right? So in the 90s, so that's kind of how it shaped like or at least shaped my idea of music. Yeah, but going back to the question again, it's definitely my family, like my brother and all these bands that I like.
How many siblings do you have?
Just one.
Just one.
Yeah, so my older brother, so he's a full-time sound engineer.
Right.
So he tours. I mean, he lives in Australia now. He used to be in Astro.
I see.
Yeah, so he lives in Australia now, and he's on tour in Japan with this band called Closure in Moscow,
right,
which is a huge band, and he's done like multiple tours with them in Europe, in US and stuff like that. And he's done stuff with the Veronicas, Ugly Kid Joe, a lot of big names, like big Aussie names lah. Yeah.
We'll be sure to check them out, honestly.
Oh yeah, man, for sure, for sure.
Are they on Spotify and Apple Music?
Oh, they are all, of course. You know, they are not just some local band. They are a big band. You know?
Okay.
Yeah, they're touring the world. You know.
For you, right? When it comes to setting like the type of genre that you wanted to sing and stuff, was it because you said like you started off with acoustic and whatsoever? How did that punk pop, I guess somewhat of a screamo outlook came about? Was it always kind of like the outlook you always wanted to portray in your band?
No, I think it's a combination of everything that I like and I listen to, right? You know, like the guys, like from all the bands that I like, you know, for example, let's use Dashboard Confessional as an example.
Right.
I mean, he's got like this whole very emo acoustic stuff and very pop sounding lyrics, you know, I guess, you know, just very emotionally driven, but it was very calming at the same time, right? But he was also in a hardcore band too, you know, so he was in another band called Further Seems Forever, which was even more emo, you know. So seeing all these guys, you know, doing it in the US and stuff like that, it just naturally just happened, you know. So guys that are doing like acoustic emo, you know, they're also in like some hardcore band or whatever, you know. For example, like the guys from Newfound Glory, you know, they used to be in a hardcore band called Shai Hulud, you know. So similarly, I just kind of like learned all these things and like discovered, more like not learned but discovered all these things, and I'm like, you know, I am in a metal band, you know, but I also can do all these acoustic stuff. So, you know, and it just naturally translated that way.
Okay.
Yeah, and as music kind of like evolved and grew, whether it was in the West or out here in Malaysia as well, you know, for me, it was just a natural thing, you know, to have like a bit of the acoustic stuff, to have a bit of the pop stuff, to have a bit of the heavier stuff, and like, you know, I guess the screaming stuff too, right? Yeah, so it was just a natural progression, especially in that era, right? I mean, again, early 2000s or more like, you know, 2008, 2009, 10. That was like the height of emo and screamo and metalcore and stuff, you know, and that's kind of like the wave that hit Malaysia as well. Like guys like SOG, you know, they started off when they were in school, like they were 15, you know, and now they're probably the biggest metalcore band in Malaysia, you know. Yeah, so I think for me it was just a natural progression.
Yeah. Right. And in terms of vocals, did you start it off like being in a vocal position first, or did you went straight to guitar when you were young?
Oh, funny enough, I actually started, so when I was playing in my metal band, I was actually playing bass. So I started playing bass in that band first, and I did like backup vocals.
Okay.
Yeah. So then later on, when I started An Honest Mistake, you know, that was when I transitioned to guitar, because I didn't want to play bass anymore. I'll just let somebody else do it, because you know, I would just play the guitar and sing lah. Yeah. So that made it, that kind of, you know, was the transition period. But I still look at the guitar like a bass. You know, bass has 4 strings or maybe 5, right? I still look at it and get confused all the time, you know. But you know, it was again like a transition that was kind of like natural as well.
Right.
Yeah, because it's same but different, you know what I mean? Yeah, but vocally, you know, I just had a lot of opportunity to sing and pick up like instruments in church. Yeah, so a lot of like
started out with gospel music.
Not gospel, you know, I wouldn't say gospel, you know, but whatever that you know, a lot of people don't know this, you know, a lot of people think that, you know, when you play music in church, it's like old school hymns, you know, where it's just like singing and it's like choir and all that. The thing is, it's not even that, you know, it's so modern now. It's like whatever you hear on the radio, you know, it could be Coldplay sounding or whatever, you know. So that's kind of how I got my start in actually learning an instrument, you know. So it was through church, and all these older guys in church, you know, would kind of like teach me. And of course my brother was already into music then, you know, so it's all these things added together, right? So I picked up like learning how to sing and having the experience, you know, being able to do it every Saturday, Sunday, you know, and sometimes Fridays or whatever, right? To kind of like have that experience. Yeah, so that's why when I was transitioning from, you know, playing bass and vocals and doing backup vocals and then into An Honest Mistake, you know, it just made it a lot easier. Yeah, because I already had that experience, you know, I already had that experience of being on stage as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So for yourself, on a day-to-day basis, do you currently have a full-time job?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, like, you know, every band or artist in Malaysia, you know, that you gotta have some kind of like backup, you know.
Right.
Like we always joke about this, you know, when people ask us, oh, so do you do music full time?
Yeah.
Then we'll say, no, music is our overtime, which is true, because the thing is, like, everybody has a day job, you know. Like, I truly applaud and admire artists who are willing to just do nothing except music.
Do it 100%.
100%, you know. But at the same time, those guys are like, you know, some of them are struggling as well, you know, on some days when they don't get gigs, or on some days if they don't have a hit song, they got no royalties, they're not being booked and stuff like that, so it's tough, right? But the really smart business-centric ones, you know, would be like, okay, I'll do music full-time, but at the same time I have a cafe.
Right.
Like, for example, like Joanna and Co. Like Joanna, like, she has a cafe, right? So she plays in a big band, you know, but at the same time she has a cafe where her family runs it, you know.
Oh, right.
And she is part of it as well, and you know, that is kind of like the thing that will fund the music.
But with that cafe, it helps her fund her dreams. And
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's the same for me as well, you know. So I, by training, I'm an English teacher, so I used to teach English in Lim Kok Wing University, you know, which was cool because I get to go to work in black every day, you know, and I get to have my tattoos and my hair and whatever, right?
Were you always known to be like the cool English
A lot of
teacher?
people thought I was a student, which was good.
Okay,
which was a good thing because
create some sort of comfortability
during
correct. Classes.
Yeah, for sure. So I used to teach English, and I did that for 6 years. But while I was doing that, you know, I was also organizing shows, I was organizing gigs, and ended up organizing at a venue called Laundry Bar at the Curve, which is now.
I think it's closed now.
Oh, for sure, it's been closed for a long time, right?
It was the same row as Italianese.
Yes, next to it.
Next to it, right?
Yeah. So I ended up organizing a lot of shows there, and then when the person who was working there decided to leave, he's like, you know, why don't you just work full time?
Okay.
So that's what I did. You know, I told them, you know, you got to match my pay that I get from here and whatever that I was getting from teaching, right? So they did, you know, and I left. So 2015, I was doing that for a bit, but it only lasted for about 10 months. Then I kind of like left and transitioned to artist management because there was an offer that came.
Okay.
So I was working
artist management is the full-time job, yeah?
Yeah, correct. So I was managing artists. I was managing Elizabeth Tanda and Trisha, Aida Jabat, all the big names, right? Aisha Aziz and all that. You know, I was part of this agency that worked with them, you know, but I also had time to be with them too, you know. So that was kind of like the main thing. And once that was done, you know, I was like just freelancing, still managing artists, you know, freelancing. And then obviously the pandemic happened and
life happens.
Yeah, so the pandemic happened. I was still doing some stuff on social media and stuff like that. And 2021 December, you know, was when again, you know, I feel like the offers that I got for work, you know, has always been like word of mouth or like based on relationships. You know, that's why relationships are so important, especially in the music scene, right?
Yeah.
So the guy before me, who was Faris, from Danger Disco, he's also part of Bad Habits, you know, he's an amazing artist, you know, and he was involved in many things before in Livescape and now in like a huge agency, and then now he's got his own thing. He was in Fred Perry, and then he said like, hey, you know, I'm leaving, you know, but I know you need a job, why don't you take over lah?
All right.
Yeah,
right.
so and that's how it happened. So I ended up like, you know, being in a brand where they value, you know, your all your skills, you know, from before, and especially having knowledge in the music industry and the entertainment industry.
Is it because like you being in the music industry, they see your skills in knowing how to shape a certain message when it comes to promoting like marketing campaigns? And
so I think it's a little bit of all of that. Fred Perry is a brand that focuses so much on subcultures and music and fashion at the same time, you know, but it's also very anti-mainstream, you know, which is very in line with who I am or who I have become, you know, being a punk artist and just going against the norm, you know. So it just fit, right? Yeah. So now Fred Perry is basically like my main job, you know, being there, and you know, it's great to be a part of something like that.
I saw you at a previous event, in your Fred Perry event, and that's how we kind of met. The both of us kind of met. And you were already wearing a Fred Perry polo shirt, and today you're also wearing a Fred Perry polo shirt and stuff. So you really embody that messaging that Fred Perry is trying to convey to his audience.
And I think, you know, like Fred Perry, like in Malaysia, a lot of people think that, oh, Fred Perry is just a very band thing. You know? Like before I joined the brand, the company, I thought that I was not punk enough for Fred Perry, you know, because I always had the impression that, oh, you know, if you are a skinhead, you know, then you will wear Fred Perry, you know.
Right.
But then
no skinhead guys in the UK.
Yeah. I mean, even out here too, you know. So it's kind of like a uniform, right? You know. So for me, when I fully understood what the brand stood for, you know, which is a representation of all these various subcultures, you know, then I was like, okay, now this is really speaking to me. Now I know what I'm doing. You know, it focuses so much on being like a hard worker, you know, going at it, you know, being like an influence in your little circles, right? So that just resonated with me so well, you know. So Fred Perry now is kind of like my uniform too, and to be honest, like, that's all I have now.
Would you say you're quite fortunate to get a job that represents what you stand for, and on the side as well, you playing music, which also represents what you stand for? Because I know a lot of my friends and also myself, we like on the side we do something different, which is our passion and our purpose, but in our day-to-day job, sometimes we don't really have that option. Would you say you're quite fortunate?
I guess I've been very fortunate since like my teaching days, you know. Like I've always had the opportunity to explore and kind of like do the main thing and focus on music at the same time, right? So when I was teaching, I used music a lot in my classes, you know. Like my students were from Tajikistan and Syria and all these various countries. I had Palestinian students too, you know, and they came from all different backgrounds, right? And the easiest way to actually engage them was through music, right? So I use music a lot in class and stuff like that, and even at work as well. Now, you know, we're working with artists, we're working with DJs, you know, we're working with the creative scene, right? So it's very music driven, and that's kind of, you know, I guess I've been very, very fortunate lah.
Right. For you, when it comes to somebody balancing out their full-time career and also balancing out music on the side, right? In Malaysia alone, do you think it's like a non-negotiable thing to actually have a full-time job, you know, to balance out?
It really depends, you know. I mean, it depends on like the tenacity and the drive of the person, you know. For me, when I was teaching, 9 to 5 was you know, my teaching hours, right? Once that was done, it was just all music, you know. But like I said earlier, you know, it funded what I needed to do. So similarly, I mean, if you are, I guess, entrepreneurial enough, you know, you would know how to maneuver and kind of like have like various streams of income that whether could be music related or non-music related, you know, come in so that you can fund your career. That's just kind of how it is, right?
How important is do you think discipline is more necessary than passion?
1000%.
Right.
1000%. You know, like discipline is really the key to anything at all. You know, it's the key to fitness. It's the key to becoming like an athlete. You know, or just, you know, becoming a good person. You know. I
always believe that I read this quote every single day, and I have it as my wallpaper as well, right? The future belongs to not the talented, not the fortunate, not the person who is always in the best places, but is the person who consistently shows up when it's hard, you know?
100%. I mean, talent does help, you know? Like it's gonna help you like, you know, 50%, but the other 50% it's all hard work, you know? Funny enough, like at the end of the month, I'm actually booking a show. So I asked this person, you know, this particular artist, and I also tweeted that there's a difference between artists and hobbyists. So I don't know if this person could see it or not. So this person said to me, oh, cool, because it's an open mic thing, right? You know, but it's a curated open mic. So I wanted to program this event, you know, for a particular venue, and it's a curated open mic. So I said, you know, you play 30 minutes. This person said, wow, play 30 minutes, open mic. I didn't know how to react because I actually don't know this person, right? It was just a random message. And this person said to me like, oh, you know, actually I really don't like performing. But then on the person's Instagram, like all just like videos of the person performing. So I'm like, okay, that's very weird. So
it wasn't jiving.
It wasn't jiving, right? So for me, like, I'm like, okay, so are you an artist or are you just a person who sometimes like to sing?
You know.
So anyway, what I'm trying to say is, you know, you gotta have the tenacity, you gotta have the drive, you gotta have a vision, you know, in order to go all the way. You know, because you may be talented, but the discipline, the attitude, you know, the stance that you adopt as a creative person, you know, that is the thing that will take you all the way. You know, so like for example, like us, I like to use this story all the time, you know, every time when people ask us, you know, oh, how did you end up playing outside of Malaysia? Because I went to these countries to meet the people and I did my groundwork prior. So you see, so Bay Beats is happening, I think this weekend, right?
What is that?
So Bay Beats is a Southeast Asian music festival that happens every year in Singapore.
Okay,
so artists from all over Southeast Asia, they fly over. there have been bands from the US and all that have come through as well, and I was fortunate enough to see all these bands play for free, right? So I played that festival in 2010, but I went a year before in 2009, attended the festival, knew nobody in Singapore, and I asked around, oh, who can I speak to? Who can I speak to? And I had I had a demo CD. I passed it to them. I eventually bumped into all these people, and we became friends, right? We became friends. The following year, I ended up playing the festival. From that festival, I met friends from Indonesia, from the Philippines, and all that, and it connected the dots, right? So then I started going out more, and then we had a Filipino friend who was telling us, hey, there's a thing in Korea, why don't we go together? So in 2016, I mean, of course, in that period, we did a lot of stuff. We went to Taiwan, Indonesia and stuff like that. Then we ended up in Korea. From Korea, we met even more people that now I have access to the world. That if at any time at all I really want to go to the UK or to Wales or to Tajikistan or Uzbekistan to perform, or Mongolia, it's there.
Darren, most people I've spoken to, they're very passionate about making the music. They're very passionate about, playing in a band whatsoever, right? But what I realize is a lot of people don't want to see the business side of it, and sometimes I personally believe that when you're in a band or when you're a solo singer or whatsoever, you also need to be a little bit of an influencer. Meaning to say you need to be actually out there doing partnerships with a lot of people. You actually need to network yourself, put yourself out there in a whole different level. Like I feel like it's no longer about having just a good voice or having a great idea in the band, which definitely helps. But I also feel like the best the best bands or the best people who makes great music are the people who knows how to market themselves really, really well.
For sure. I mean, when we started out, we knew that we wanted to play music, right? We wanted to write good songs, good music, and have a good time. But
that's what everyone starts out with.
That's how it starts, right? But at some point, then you realize, oh, I need money to record songs lah. Oh, I need to print merchandise and stuff like that, right? So from there, we kind of found the blueprint for us, for various bands. They work differently for us. The first thing that we did was to create a band account, right? So whatever money that came in, they all just went into the band account, and then as it grew and as we grew older, then later on, and as we started playing more shows that had bigger budgets, then we split among the band members as well, right? So but it was all kind of like a bank, right? So how did we record our first album? We fundraised. My neighbor runs a print shop, so he printed all our shirts. I paid him later after we sold the shirts, right? With the earnings, we used it to fund the recording. So I was fortunate. I mean, I'm lucky enough that my guitarist then, Leonard, which is still a very good friend of ours, he has always been involved with that business and stuff, so it was his idea, hey, we gotta start a band account, we need to register our band as a company and stuff like that, and that's kind of how it all happened, right?
So Leonard was also one of the pioneers that actually instilled the direction of, hey, look, we need to take this more seriously.
For sure, yeah. So, having good music is the first step, right? You can, there are many, it's funny that you said that a good artist should also be a good influencer, right?
Or a content creator.
Or content creator, right? So you see, there are a lot of influencers now who are like, oh, I'm a hot guy, I'm a hot girl, I have 100,000 followers. Oh, maybe I'll just do some music, Now, the thing is, the music may or may not be something that they truly it may not be something that's from the soul. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not like hating on them or anything. I'm just saying that it's great that you have all these other things that you're famous for, and then music is one of those things that you happen to do, right? But for a lot of musicians, you got to start with yourself. You have good music, good tracks, but it doesn't end there. The marketing part of things is very, very important, because you can't just market something empty, right? Because there's no substance.
Right.
But when you have a good track, then you gotta market it as well, So you gotta be out there meeting people and being humble, Like I many years ago, there was a dude, that said to me, I was organizing a show. I invited him to come to the show. He's like, I will never come to your show if I'm not performing. I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay. he will never come to your show if he's not performing in it with you as well. Okay.
He's not being like paid or whatever to play at the show.
Oh, okay.
Years later, in fact, like maybe 2 months ago, I played this track on Hits.
Right.
You know, no hate, right? I'm just saying that you got it, and his band kind of like disappeared after that, and then now he's kind of like coming back and starting to do music again, you know. But no hate on that person, you know. But what I'm saying is, you know, humility and being humble, you know, and going out to network with people is so important. There are so many artists who choose to be on their own, and you know, they're in their own group, right? Now, which is great because you're developing your community, which is very good. Now, you know, it's because you can't exist on your own. I mean, you can have your own little scene, but you gotta cross over. You know, let's look at Rock the World. You know, Rock the World is a great platform. You know, it's a legendary platform, right? 25 years on, it's still there. But in the past like 5-6 years, everybody's been saying that, you know, Rock the World has kind of like lost its novelty, right? When I played Rock the World in 2009, 2010, you know, and 2015, I could see like the crowd dwindling. 2009, you know, there's like maybe like 20,000, 30,000 people. You know, the year before that, probably like 50,000 people. You know, my brother played in 2008, you know, or 7. And every year before that, it was always like a gathering of your friends and stuff like that. But also this was pre like crazy social media, right? So what I'm saying is, you know, there has to be cross-pollination. You know, I'm using a lot of like big jargons now.
Yeah,
you know,
no
because
problem.
it's a real thing, you know. There has to be a lot of cross-pollination. There are a lot of shows, there are a lot of gigs that are happening that are one genre, one language, you know, where, to be honest, you know, there's just so much more to be discovered. You know, every venue has like a special, like, kind of like attraction to it, you know, but I also feel that there has to be organizers that would want to be like, I want to be everywhere. I want to know hip-hop, I want to know metal and all that. So I am fortunate enough that when I was coming up, you know, I came up in a scene where all these guys were one, you know, and then now, you know, they're all very broken up,
very fragmented,
you know. But I am fortunate enough to be able to dabble into all these audiences as well, you know. So I know the guys from the hardcore scene, I know the guys from the hip hop scene, I know the singer-songwriters, you know. It's a bit of a mix of everything.
Did that influence you to be a little bit versatile when it comes to producing your music? Because a lot of people, whenever they are in punk rock or whatsoever, they tend to be like, oh, we only want to be emo all the time. You know?
So I mean, for us, you know, we've always been a versatile band, you know, coming from various backgrounds, right? So therefore, our style of music has always been evolving, you know. Like we have the acoustic stuff, we've got the pop punk stuff, we've got the heavy stuff. So that we're basically targeting all the main sections, right? And now, like, we've got some hip-hop elements in our tracks as well. So I think, you know, it's also being calculative, you know, again, going back to having the business mind. When you have the business mind, you will know how important networking is. You will know how important branding is. You will know how important, you know, like being on point all the time is, you know, and especially utilizing social media, you know. So, like I said earlier on, you know, I think you got to be a smart musician. At some point, you need to graduate from just playing shows and being a band. You need to become business people.
Yes.
You know, and that's when you move on to the next step. Like we're lucky that a lot of people in brands and event organizers, like not like a gig organizer, but events like Mercedes, you know, like BMW events, you know, and stuff like that. We were fortunate enough to be able to graduate from just playing these shows to playing branded shows. You know, like in 2018 we opened for Hoobastank and what's that, Black Eyed Peas,
right.
Like,
well, that was a very big achievement.
And that was a big thing, you know. It was a Mercedes thing, you know, and we were treated very well, and then that kind of like gave us the idea, okay, you know, let's do more of this, you know. So we've done a lot of branded stuff too, right? So at some point you got to graduate as an artist.
Yes.
You know,
a lot of musicians, they in Malaysia, I've noticed, they most of the time they rely most of their income in F&B establishments. You know, playing at bars, playing at clubs or restaurants and whatsoever. Nothing wrong with that. But what you're saying is, at some point you need to, if you really are serious about music, you need to take it to the next level.
Yeah, correct.
Right, you need to graduate from there.
Yeah. So no, again, like bars and venues, you know, that's kind of like it's like a stepping stone, right? But once you get through that, you don't want to get stuck in that world. There are many bands that are stuck in that world and they don't ever come out of it, you know, and like 10, 20 years on, they're still doing that scene, right? So you want to be able to graduate, you know, be known for your own original music because you're a creator, you're an artist, right? You're not a cover band. I mean, there are tons of cover bands and no hate on them, they're doing a great job. The cover bands, in fact, are actually earning a whole lot more. These guys are playing 5 shows, 6 shows a day, a week, you know. Let's say they get paid like 500 ringgit per show, per person, you know, and they play 6 days a week, right? Times that by 30, you know, times that by 4 weeks, right? You know, they're all these guys, they're earning a lot, you know. That's why they can use the most expensive gear and all that. Now, some guys who are in that scene, they're comfortable. They're comfortable doing that, you know.
Because if that's your thing, go ahead.
Correct.
No hate.
But for me, I don't want to play covers. I may not be as good as a musician as the pop guys, you know, but I am a creator. You know, I want to create stuff. You know, and then when we started doing some covers, you know, we called it the corporate EP because a lot of corporate events sometimes they would like to have covers. So we created. It's kind of like to poke fun at the idea, because corporate gigs would always be like, oh, can I hire you as a band? But can you play Mariah Carey? Can you play Bruno Mars? Can you play this song, that song? You know, I'm like, why don't you just ask Spotify, right?
Have you played YMCA before?
No, we have not. Because after we've come up with our versions of the covers, you know, I said these are the covers that we will do. You know, if you hire us, you hire us for our original music, and if you want us to do covers, these are the covers that we'll play. You know, if you want us to do a specific track, pay us more. You know, because there's time that goes into producing and recording and rehearsal and stuff like that, right? So again, going back to the whole, like, you know, pop band and stuff like that, you know, again, no hate on them, you know, or there are also original artists who are playing the pop scene and all that, but again, you gotta move. You know,
I think if you're serious about music, that will come to,
for sure. But there are a lot of bands, you know, that are big in the pop scene, you know, that are also doing very big corporate events as well, because, you know, again, corporate guys, they want you to play the top 40s, right? And they can, and these guys make good money as well. So I'm not saying that, you know, playing the pop scene is a bad thing. You know, it's not. You know, I think it's a good thing. You know, it's just that everybody has their own stance on this kind of stuff. So for me, I prefer not to do covers like five days a week. You know,
right?
Yeah,
right.
So, you know, that's kind of, we're not that kind of a band. Yeah.
When it comes to releasing originals from your band, right? Have you had any disagreements along the way when it comes to developing original music of your own? You know, has there been like a time where you guys had any disagreement or doubts about the direction of the music?
All the time.
Okay.
All the time, you know. So for example, like in every band, everybody has to play their role, right? I am obviously the leader of the band. And when there's a leader, there has to be a follower, right? And then there has to be a guy who is always disagreeing. Now, disagreeing isn't a bad thing, because then it sharpens you, you know. Then disagreeing because there's something else that could be done better, or there's another direction that could like would create a different kind of emotion, you know. So disagreements happen all the time, but thankfully enough, you know, we've grown together, being in a band for so long. We've grown together that the guys in the band just allow me to steer the direction of the band, right?
Because it is a strong level of trust.
Yeah, correct. But it's not like a dictatorship, you know. I always give, you know, opportunity for everybody to share their opinions and put in their thing too. You know, when it comes to like writing songs, you know, in the past it has always been like all of us sit in a room, crack our heads and write together. But when the pandemic happened, you know, and that's kind of how like the new album happened, I wrote everything at home. You know, like from the drums to the guitars, and like the main idea is there, and then the guys would chime in and put in their ideas, you know. And some of them would be like, oh, this idea not so good, you know, and we'll cut and paste and do that kind of stuff. So disagreements, 100%. Yeah.
The bulk of it comes from yourself, but the rest of your band members will normally help to amplify it.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, it's always a combination of all of that. You know, it's a collective thing. You know, it's not just my thing.
How would you say your dynamic is with the rest of your band members? Are you guys like family, or I mean, do you guys? I mean, because you've known them for so long, right? At this point, you guys are just friends, right?
The thing is,
or do you
like
treat them like business partners? You know?
Yeah. So we've had many band members come and go. You know, like we've had like two drummers. In fact, 3 drummers. Yeah, and current one is the fourth one. You know, we had like a female vocalist, 1, 2, 3, and then 4, and then now we don't have one. You know, but there would be friends who would jump in and sing with us. You know, so everybody who's been in the band with us, you know, they were either friends from forever ago, you know, that when person A left, friend B came in and just took the place, you know. So it was a natural thing, right? So all of us were friends first, and then I will not say that we are business partners. I mean, technically we are all supposed to be business partners, you know, but we are friends first and foremost, and that makes it more important than anything else. Like for example, like Eugene is the latest band member. So he joined the band about 2 years ago, when our original drummer Ian left the band. So he was always a friend. You know, we always knew who he was and stuff like that, and we hung out for a bit. But Eugene also plays in another band with Thomas, which is our guitarist, you know, and they are also bandmates, you know, so we're all kind of like a family, right? And you're right, I mean, the word is family, and even people who used to be in the band, we still consider them family, you know, like our ex like drummers and guitarists and whatever, you know, we're all still family. And in fact, bonding is very important. So in the past we used to only meet up during jam sessions and stuff like that, or like during shows, or when we have to play together or tour, and that's when you really get to know people, right? You know, they say you get to know somebody when you travel with them, and we've traveled with like us
you
so
get to
much.
know someone when you travel with them, and also when you live with them.
Yeah, correct. So you know, we spend a lot of time together doing music stuff. But lately, you know, we've been spending a lot of time doing non-music stuff, like, you know, just going for lunch, or, you know, playing pickleball. You know, it's stuff like that, you know, that builds the bond, because we are, after all, a family, and we're not just doing music alone. You know what I mean? So all these elements are really important.
What was the lowest point you guys have ever been being in a band together, you know? Do you remember? Yeah.
I think for me,
any of the struggles.
I think the earlier days were kind of like difficult, you know. I think like the main struggle was trying to get shows, you know, trying to know people, trying to meet people, you know, that was kind of tough. But at the same time, it's also learning and growing as people, and maintaining and managing people in the band, you know. I would say those were kind of like the little struggles, you know. But at the same time, the struggle of the idea of being relevant, you know. I think everybody wants to be relevant, right? I think we've shared the idea of trying to be relevant, but to be our absolute authentic selves. You know,
and that's a challenge.
No, it's not. So being authentic is not the challenge. The challenge is trying to be relevant. You know, but we've discarded that whole idea, and we're like, screw all of that. You know, we'll just be ourselves, right? And sometimes the truth is, when you've been in a band for so long, there's going to be 100 other younger bands that's going to be better than you, that's going to be more popular than you, right? So the reality of it is that. So 2020, when the pandemic hit, I questioned all of this. You know, where are we as a band now? How are we relevant? You know, is our music any good, or are we writing like crappy music? You know, where are we now in this equation of the Malaysian music industry, right? And then that's how the album The Lonely Hearts Club, you know, came out, right? So I started writing, and I was like, screw all of that negative thoughts, you know, I'm just going to write music and do what I feel is good for my soul, you know, and play what we like, play what we feel, because if we were honest with our feelings and with the way we were writing our lyrics, people are going to resonate with that. So I stopped caring about what what people would think. But I started to think, if I am going to feel this way, and I want it to come through the music so that people can feel the same way that I did. Because I am quite sure that anybody would have struggled with depression, the idea of, you know, being disrespected, you know, or having people you trust, you know, betray you and stuff like that. So
being misunderstood.
So all these were themes within the new album, which is called The Lonely Hearts Club. So we put it out last year, and then earlier
2024, right?
2024, yeah. So and then earlier, I think earlier this year, I just did like, I removed the vocals and I released like an instrumental version, right? So that I would say, you know, would be like the lowest point in that sense, but being at the lowest point came strength. You know what I mean? And I feel that is kind of like a journey of many musicians. Every year I tell my guys, my bandmates, my friends, you know, every year I will go through at least once or twice where I feel like, man, this is going nowhere, you know. Let's just quit music, sell all my equipment, you know, let's not just do music anymore, and let's just focus on the job, right? But then every time I would feel that way, some opportunity would fall on my lap and be like, hey, you guys want to do this? You know, it's always like that. Every year since the band started, right?
When you're about to quit, that's suddenly
correct. It's always like that, you know. And it's the same thing, you know, like I told Kieran, you know, also known as Saint Kylo, every time I speak to him, he'd be like, oh, I want to quit, I want to quit. And I would tell him this story all the time, right? And every single time he tells me he wants to quit, boom, something big happens, you know. And then
the opportunity happens.
Yeah, correct. You know? So something big happens, you know. And then he just came back from Ireland, you know, with like putting out a track with an Irish artist. It was a Jameson thing. It was a branded thing, you know. And then like he's got like a media agency that's like pushing his music now, you know. So I'm like, okay, this is good, right? So I think at low points, that's when the best music comes.
What are your thoughts about channeling inner darkness into your craft?
It's always been that, you know. I think like music has always been, you know, everybody says that, oh, you know, if you don't struggle, if you don't go through hardships, you can't write good songs, you know. I mean, look at Taylor Swift, you know, like Break Up, La, What La, you know, it's a pop song, but she writes some of her best songs, you know, when she was heartbroken, right? Like, so, like even for us, like it's the same thing, you know. Like my favorite songs were written when I was really pissed off or when I was broken, you know. Like there's a song that we don't play that often that a lot of people always ask us to play, you know. And it's called Let's Battle It Out with Vesuvius the Great. So I was very heartbroken when my first like female like bassist and first female vocalist left the band, right? And I was very heartbroken and I was very disappointed, you know. But it was beyond stuff that I could control, because it was more like they were still in like college, you know. Their parents were like involved and stuff like that, and it became a thing, right? But I was really heartbroken by that because it was a situation that I couldn't change. It was a decision that was made for them, not by them, you know what I mean? So and that was actually like a really good song came out of it.
And do you guys still keep in contact?
I mean, yes and no, you know, because they're all like doing different things now, you know. But yeah, so I believe, like, you know, in darkness there will be light, right? Yeah, and in the darkness, when you see light, even like a small glimmer, you can see it, right? Yeah. So
some of the best work I've produced, I mean, I don't produce music myself, but just in general, right? Some of the best work I've produced was always in a place of being at a very low point in my life, you know? Yeah, and I realized that somehow whenever you're in a very low point in your life, you get this kind of like courage where there's nowhere else to go already, you know. The only way is up, like,
yeah,
you know?
correct. I mean, it's kind of like a fight or flight kind of situation, you know, where
I think it's necessary, you know?
Yeah, it is necessary, you know. And I mean, of course, you don't want to like go through like down times all the time, you know, but you want to be able to have those moments where you reflect, you know. So like at moments like those, you know, that's when great things happen.
Has there ever been a point where you felt judged and misunderstood for pursuing this career?
That's a good question. I mean, like, judge by who? Like society or
by society, or maybe, to be honest, most of the judgment that normally comes is from people that we know, you know, our close ones and stuff. Yeah, in fact, I feel like strangers are sometimes more supportive than the people that you know.
For sure. Okay, so for me, I don't think I've ever been judged by my family. You know, my family, like we're all very musical. You know, like my uncles and my entire family, like both my mom's and my dad's side. You know, they've always been nothing but supportive, right? They've never judged. You know, they always embrace my brother and I, you know, for choosing the paths that we chose. But I feel like growing up in church, you know, or spending a lot of time in church, you know, that the judgment came a little bit from there too, you know, because we came like from Penang. I ended up in Kajang, you know, it's a small town, you know, and in a church where everybody ended up in that Kajang church, right? And I felt that I was judged quite a bit, you know, because you know, when it was the emo phase, you know, or more like 2001, 2002, you know, it was all the eyeliner and all that, you know, and that, I mean, for me, like, the outlet then was to dress up and go to church, right? So I would have like the eyeliner and all that stuff.
Did you
and
have the
my
long hair back then?
Oh, always. You know, I had like the
Looks
crazy
good, by the
hair
way.
and stuff like that. So a lot of people just felt like, oh, you know, why is Darren doing this and stuff like that. So I felt judged a lot, you know, by the church, you know. But that's just common, you know, we're in Asia, you know, and you got tattoos and stuff like that. Now it's a lot more acceptable, you know, but in the past, you know, like 1999, 2000, you know, it was all very weird for these people. And coming from a small town, you know, they had small town mentality as well. Now again, good on them for doing whatever that they're doing, you know, but I just felt that, you know, this was a community that I thought that I would get like the biggest support, but I didn't, you know. In fact, there were some people who said, oh, please don't go to Darren's gigs.
Oh my.
You know, so I'm like, it's cool, you know, it's no big deal, you know, but at the same time, you know, at that time, those people who said that were adults that were way older than I was, you know, they had kids. But then when their kids grew up, then now the tone has changed, you know, their opinions have changed, right? Because now they have teenage kids who are also into this kind of stuff, right? So, but then again, you know, I think like the only kind of judgment was probably from that. And maybe from other people, like in this, maybe not from the scene, you know, I think like the scene has always been very embracing, you know,
and supportive.
But there are also some, I mean, in every industry there's going to be gatekeeping, you know, and gatekeeping is something that people talk a lot about, right? Some of the gatekeepers just never liked us, right? And that's fine. And that's fine, because some of these people are no longer in the industry, you know, and now we have become, I won't say that I am a gatekeeper, I am not. I don't ever want to be a gatekeeper, I only want to be a supporter. But we've been in the scene long enough to know a bit of everything, you know, to be able to maneuver and shift things around.
Have you helped a lots of people in your career, you know, to get to where they want to be in music, you know?
I believe I have, you know, I believe I have, you know, there are some bands who happened because of my push. For example, like the guys from Back to Basics, you know, they're a pop R&B group. Christian Teixeira, who's a close friend, I've always known him. And then he said he was going to start this like vocal group or something like that, you know, and up till today he tells the story, you know, of how thankful he was, you know, when I don't even remember, right? Because he told me I was the one who pushed him and the rest of the guys to form.
I see.
Right? And it's crazy because I don't even remember that, you know, but my goal has always been to encourage people, to give people the platform that I didn't have, you know, because it was not handed to me. You know, of course, I had it maybe a little bit easier because all these big guys knew me because I was my brother's brother, right? But I had to fight my own way because after my brother left Malaysia, you know, I had to do it on my own, you know. I cannot use him as the calling card all the time, right? So I had to create my own ways and find my own direction and, you know, kind of like create my own journey, right?
You know what's it like to have it hard?
Yeah, yeah. And because it was hard for me, I want to make it easier for the people that came after me, you know. So by providing, you know, like tips and tricks and how you can approach this and how you can do stuff, you know, and being in a brand like Fred Perry now, I'm able to do that even more at a greater level now. You know, last time it was more like, oh, I can help you do this, I can help you do that or whatever. Now I can help you like, you know, like progress even further because now I'm in a global brand, you know. So I feel like the years of hard work, you know, playing in a band and weaving my way into the industry and into the scene and kind of like finding my footing, now I feel that I'm at a very good place where I have a radio show on hits, you know, I have the podcast, I have, you know, a good band and a brand that I work with, you know. So all these resources have become very accessible, you know, that I am now sharing with people as well.
Have you ever had an embarrassing moment that occurred on stage before?
I would like to say yes, but I don't think I can pinpoint any, you know, even when I read the question, I was like, embarrassing moment. I don't think there's ever been anything like completely embarrassing, but maybe it was embarrassing for my bandmate then. So for Sunny, when we played Rock the World in 2015, I swung my guitar and then I told him, now it's your turn. You know, swing your bass. You know, he swung his bass and it just snapped. Right. So that was kind of like, I don't think it was necessarily embarrassing, but it was a funny moment. You know, that we will always talk about. You know, so now he never swings his bass. You know, and in fact he's never done it except that one time. You know, that I told him to. You know, in the heat of the moment. Right. So that was kind of a funny thing. You know, but I think one of those times that was quite funny was, I won't say embarrassing, you know, this was, I think, 2018, it was the launch of Tiger Crystal, right? And I love the Tiger guys. We've been like long-time collaborators with them. In fact, the corporate EP was actually funded by Tiger Beer, right? So I played so we were playing, and then I like feeding off of the energy of people who are watching us play. So everybody was drinking and stuff, and I saw this girl. She was rocking out, she was enjoying herself, and I was like, come up on stage, right? And she had a bottle, and then I told her, like, pour it into my mouth, right? And she poured it in a way where, because I had my guitar as well, I need to make sure that she would pour it the correct way, that it wouldn't touch my guitar, if not it'll spoil it. And she poured it like, it didn't even go into my mouth, you know. It just went down, right?
Went down.
Yeah, it just went down like on my side. So I was like, what are you doing? You know, so that was kind of like a funny moment. You know, we've got videos and we've got photos of that. You know, but later on after that, after we were done playing, you know, I went down and we had a drink and we had a laugh and chat together. So, I mean, I thought that was fun. Yeah, that was a memorable experience. You know, not necessarily embarrassing.
Right.
You know, but yeah, that was kind of funny.
Do you drink a lot?
Yes and no.
Okay.
When it's the right time. So I never drink before shows, you know, because I feel like alcohol like destroys your voice. You know, it dries everything up. You know, your voice becomes hoarse, and you know, I want to be able to sing at its optimum.
Right.
You know, yeah.
Despite having such a fun, party, chaotic life, you still find a place to be structured and professional before your show.
100%. Yeah, I think like
similar to being an athlete, you know.
It's being disciplined. You know, I am always early. You know, I am never late to an event. You know, I don't like being late. If call time is an hour ahead, I'm 2 hours ahead.
Yes.
You know, so I like to suss things out in advance. You know, for example, when we played Rio in August, you know, we played Rio Merdeka. The night before, and even the week before, where we knew we were going to play, I was already like mapping out, okay, how are we going to move, because roads were going to be blocked. I was doing my research and all that. And I mean, it helps also because I used to work in Lim Kok Wing in Cyberjaya. I used to go Putrajaya a lot. So I was very familiar, but I also wanted to know where exactly, you know, all these things were. So even for soundcheck, we were early. Right? We were early for soundcheck the night before, you know, and then the day off, you know, we were early as well. So I pride myself in being very, very disciplined. Yeah, like even like up to like bringing my own gear, you know. So I think I am still the only person who would bring my guitar amps out. I have all this gear that I've accumulated over the years, and I'm like, if I'm gonna have a consistent sound, and again, consistency is the key, right? I'm gonna have to bring my gear out. So I'll bring my amp out, and people used to say, "Hey, Darren, you crazy lah, you know, bring all these things so heavy." But every time after playing, they'll be like, "Wow, you sound good lah." You know, it's because, you know, I put in the heart and the discipline of bringing out these amps.
Because you're also confident on how it would sound as
exactly,
well, right?
Yeah. So because like when you go to a venue, you're playing through, like for example, like right here in the studio, you know, there's a Churia Tone, there's a Marshall, there used to be a Mesa here as well. You know, like all kinds of amps, you know, but you never know what you're gonna get. Right? And you can ask them, you know, but
you never know what it's been through.
Yeah, well, correct. The quality, you know, the and all of that. So for consistency's sake, you know, we bring out our amps, right?
So would it be possible for you to give? Us a demo of one of your chorus in terms of like line by line? You know, could you give us a lyric? You know.
Yeah. There are so many songs, you know, that I've written over the years, you know. But I think a really good one, it would be something from the latest album. It's simple, straightforward, you know. It's a song that initially I wrote when my dog passed away, right? So you know how humans and their dogs are, or their pets are very attached, right? You know, so for me, I've never had pets until my dog Cleo, and we had her for 16 years, and then when she passed, it was very tough for me, right? So I was, you know, in pain, right? So I ended up writing a little bit of the lyrics in the beginning, together with my girlfriend's sister's boyfriend, right? Because he's like a big time producer and all that as well. So I wrote a little bit of that, and then I ended up writing the entire song later on. So, but the chorus line is, I wish I could spend another day with you, and then I'd give anything to be with you. And then later on it continues that I know I can't do it on my own. I know I can't face this world alone. Because there will never be another you. Yeah. So much so that song, like the first time that I played it, you know, I just didn't sing. I just cried, you know, because it was so emotional. And then I realized how powerful that song was, right? So that was written in 2023. 2024 was when so 2023 I wrote it, and then we performed it, and then there was that emotional thing. It was at a big show. Then 2024, when my dad passed away, which was September last year,
Deepest
that song, thanks. That song has taken on a different meaning now. You know, it is no longer a song just about Cleo, but it's also a song about my dad. You know, because the same type of emotions. You know, it's dealing with loss and dealing with grief, and you know, stuff like that you don't always hear in songs. So for me, when I put my heart into it, you know, I just realized, wow, you know, this is a song that hopefully will be able to touch a lot of people. Every time when I share the story before playing the song, I can just see a lot of people crying, you know, and tearing up or whatever, right? And so I think that would be a song that I would say would be really cool.
Alright.
But I mean, but it's very different from how I used to write. So that song is called There Won't Be Another You. Very straightforward, you know. But then there's the hit song that actually put us on the map is called If I Told You This Was Real, Would You Believe Me? Long song titles, because that was you know, the era of long song titles. That one was a very different take, because the chorus of that song is close your eyes and count back to 10. Well, like there's things like let's run away, you know, let's you know, enjoy the night, you know, and stuff like that. So it's stuff that's like really happy, you know, and it was a reflection of that period as well, you know, because it was a happy time, right? So it's like a song that you've just fallen in love, you know. So that kind of stuff, you know, very different from how like the growth, you know, and the maturity in how I used to write versus now, you know, it's a little bit more straightforward, a little bit more honest. Yeah.
So Darren, for our audience here today, could you tell us the difference between, as a band, right, for An Honest Mistake, going with a record label and going fully independent? What are the two major differences in both of the experiences, you know?
Yeah, I think this is a really good question. And there are a lot of people, a lot of bands that are signed to labels, and there are a lot of bands that are not signed to labels, and there are ones that choose not to sign, right? For us, you know, we started off as an independent band. You know, we didn't even think about being signed to any labels. You know, I mean, we did, you know, but at that time there weren't any labels that were kind of like interested, right? And then when it was an event that Universal Music had organized, and I was there, and I met up with the people, and then we started talking about signing, right? And we signed for 2 years. But when we signed to the label, they told us, yeah, Darren, you all know what to do already lah. Yeah, you know, just do your thing lah. You know. So I was expecting like management and like development and stuff like that, right? But there weren't any of that. You know,
they were supposed to be a whole package.
Yeah, I mean, there are different types of deals. I mean, we didn't have that 360 deal like right? So let's talk about you know, or at least like whatever information that I know of them, right? But at that time, I just feel that the label didn't know how to work with a band like us. You know, I said, if you want us to do Malay songs, you know, let's do it. I'm down, you know. Everybody says that, oh, if you're signed to a label, you're signing your life away, blah, blah, blah. For me, I signed to a label, it was a strategic move. I signed to a label so that I can say, hey, I'm a major artist now, you know. It was a bragging thing, you know. It was a strategic move to put us on a different level, right? But in that 2 years that we were signed, you know, the label had only gotten us 2 shows. And actually one of it was a show that we had gotten on our own. And we're like, hey, can you manage this for us? Right? So And then the first show was actually a Mercedes show. That later on, you know, in 2018, you know, we had already become friends with the event organizer. So when another Mercedes event happened, then they called us directly, right? But anyway, when we were signed, there was very little work that was done. Not as big of a push because we weren't the biggest artists. There's, you know, Fatah Amin and Fazura and all these other big mainstream names that were on that label, right? So the biggest difference for me, to be honest, was just the fact that we could say that, we're signed to a major label.
Right.
Yeah, but let's use as an example, right? This is to my knowledge, okay? So if you guys hear this and if it's wrong, you message me and tell me wrong, okay? Or if you guys from the label, you know, tell me that it's wrong, okay? A 360 deal means they everything, management, development, merchandising, producing your music, everything, right? They did everything and was basically the baby of Universal Music, and then later on they became big. You know, they had very good songs, worked with like the top producers in Malaysia, and they got like all kinds of deals, you know, Samsung and whatever, all these other deals, right? Ambassadorship and stuff like that, and it's good for them, right? But if they were independent, I don't think they would be able to be as they are now, you know. So for us, our direction has always been very different, you know. Signed to a major label because we wanted to know how it was like. But we've always been very independent. You know, we've done things on our own, we book shows on our own, we did things on our own.
Despite being attached to a record label, you still operate in a very independent manner.
Yeah, exactly. And
that's very interesting.
Yeah, and so that we would be so, I guess the word is like equipped with knowledge that we know what we're doing. You know, so being independent, you know, there's that perk, right? But being independent also, you know, I guess has its cons as well. You know, for example, access to certain things. You know, I am fortunate enough to be able to dabble in all these different sects of the industry that, and like coming from prior experiences as well, that now I have access whether I'm signed or not. You know, but there are many unsigned bands, you know, that may not have the access or the knowledge, and that's why I have my podcast, that's why I have my radio show, you know, and that's why like I like talking to people, and you know, and like even on this podcast, you know, so that we can encourage and get people to learn stuff and be a better artist, and so that you can really fuel your passion and be rewarded for it.
All right. We come to our closing bit over here, right, Darren?
Yeah.
If someone's listening right now who's struggling to chase their dream, right? Not just in music, but in life in general, what would you tell them?
I am not a life coach, so I'm not going to tell you how to do your life, you know. But I mean, if you're talking about music, you know, like if you're struggling, honestly, you just need to do it. You know, like you need to go out and do it. Like if you're thinking, oh, I'm not getting shows, I don't know anybody, go out to shows. Go out to shows, meet people, you know, ask the organizers, can I play next? You know, how can I get on this show? Go to a music venue, you know, meet the people from labels, drop them a message, you know, you do whatever you can to get to them, you know. And I feel like the more you complain and the more you say that, oh, I don't know anybody lah, you know, and then you're like, oh, woe is me, oh, poor old me, right? Like, you're just wasting time feeling that way when you can channel your energy into like, hey, you know, I'm a new artist, how can I play at your event and stuff like that, and you gotta learn. You just need to go out. Like the music scene in Malaysia, it's all about connections and relationships. You know, you gotta go out and meet people, and that's just how it is. You know, it's not gonna fall on your lap. You know, like sure, your music's gonna, if you already have music out, right? It's great, you know, because there's a chance that people will discover it. But you got to sell yourself. You know, it's marketing. So by going out, you know, you're actually marketing yourself. So if you say that it's like a person who's struggling, not knowing where to go, not knowing what to play or what to do or where to start, just there are tons of resources online. There are tons of resources that you can find, whether it's local or international. You know, there are tons of YouTube videos, you know, that you can find of how you can do these things, you know. But at the end of the day, you can have all this knowledge of how to do it, but it's the who that is very, very important, you know. So once you have that narrowed down, you know, then you're able to do it.
All right.
Yeah. So,
right.
and I think the last thing would be like, now is the time. If you're thinking like, oh, you know, can I be an artist? Just try. Just try. I mean, if you're really terrible, then people will tell you, or
Yeah.
But if you're good, then just keep going. Yeah. So that's what I would say.
That's a solid advice.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Darren, for
Thanks
joining
for
the
having
show.
me, man.
Thank you so much. I hope to see you in your next show.
For sure.
And
For
hopefully
sure.
I can get some of that Fred Perry merch as well. Thank you so much, my friend.
All right. Thanks, man.